To check in goods from a purchase order that you sent and now a delivery has arrived, we go to the purchase orders module, we go to purchase orders find, and we bring up, by searching for it, the particular supplier or vendor or indeed purchase order number, etc., any means by which you want to search for orders that those deliveries may be associated with. So I brought up a particular supplier and I've just double-clicked to open the order that the delivery will be linked to. And you'll see here that I can now go to the Deliveries tab at the top left of the screen on this particular order. I click Deliveries, where had there been previous deliveries associated with this, they would be listed, and then I click New Delivery. I enter in the name of the employee, the date that the delivery is taking place, and you'll now see that I can go down through each of the items on this order and enter in the number received. Some key aspects to look at just before we do that are, you'll note at the bottom of this particular PO delivery form that have buttons such as All Received, Add to Label Queue and Print Label Queue. One of the things you can set Eve to do in the options form within Eve is to automatically print labels as the goods are marked as being received. And that I would advise that you do that if you're using a dedicated barcode printer, and that will ensure that as you mark each of these goods as received, that those labels will, when you click Save, automatically come out of your barcode printer, and it obviously makes it a lot easier to then put those items up on the shelf, etc., around the store. Now in this example I'm just going to indicate that not all items have been received, so I might want to enter in manually the numbers that have been received, and you'll see as I go down that A, the quantity received is marked, B, the label quantity, and C, what is left is the quantity outstanding. And I would continue to do that all the way through until I've gone through each of the items in the delivery and marked off exactly which of the items on the original purchase order have now been delivered. When that's done, I would click Save. Now one of the ways that Eve will help you is, having done so, if an item has a cost price of 0 because it was perhaps accidentally entered onto the database as that, you will see that warning come up here for you to indicate that this will affect stock item history and profit figures. So you can enter the exact cost price of an item, you'll see here that is, right here on the purchase order delivery, and that will mean that the appropriate cost price does get entered for this item. This also allows you to make sure that if there are particular prices for particular items on this particular order, i.e. they are not the standard prices, but just you've got a special deal from a particular supplier, you can enter those prices here, and that will affect these particular goods rather than the overall stock item. And that will allow you to keep your profit figures and your cost of goods sold figures correct within Eve. And as this is now a purchase order that has moved from sent to we have received some of the goods, Eve asks you, do you want to change the purchase order status to awaiting back orders? And I will indicate yes. And the printing labels would be taking place right now. I hit close on that. Now let us imagine that the next day, couple of days later, that we again have the rest of these items come in. We can now go again to Deliveries, click New Delivery, and this time all of these may be received. Eve will now, as you see, adjust again, quantity outstanding, label, quantity, etc. Any changes to cost prices for the particular items that are on this order, I can make now. I enter in which employee has taken in this delivery. Save. Again, a reminder about profit figures. And now Eve says, do I want to change this status order to all received, but invoice is still outstanding? And in this case, I will apply. And that has saved the order, and that order is now all received. As and when a purchase order invoice is associated with that purchase order, I can now again open up the purchase order, and this time, rather than the general tab which listed the items that we'd ordered, rather than the deliveries tab which listed the deliveries associated with it, I will go to the supplier invoices tab, enter new invoice, mark in the employee who's entering in the invoice details, enter the invoice number. Eve has defaulted to today's date. Eve will also, based on the terms you've entered against the supplier record, have defaulted to that, though of course there could be different payment due dates. Enter in the subtotal that's on the invoice, whatever the tax obligations on that invoice are, and of course if freight is associated with that, can enter that in as so, and that records the fact that the invoice has been created and entered and marked against this particular purchase order. Now I'm coming out of that again to show that one of the things I can now do is go back to that purchase order and mark against the supplier invoice by going to the supplier invoices tab, highlighting the particular invoice, hitting open invoice, the payment we've made. By clicking into the payment date, that will bring up the day you do that, i.e. today's date, enter in the amount being paid, the payment method. These payment methods are the same that you have in store for sales, and if there is a payment number associated with that, you may wish to enter it there. And as you can see, you can put in multiple payments against a particular invoice. Save as that. And now one of the things I will do on this order is to mark this as complete. And I will mark that as complete to indicate that this purchase order has now A, been sent, B, deliveries have arrived, and C, invoice associated with it has arrived, and D, that has now been marked as paid. And of course, at any time you want to review elements of your purchase orders, you can go to Purchase Orders Find and look by those purchase orders that are either all received, awaiting back orders, complete, pending, etc. And similarly, you can do that with purchase order invoices to see only those that have been paid, unpaid, etc., or by particular invoice numbers from a particular vendor, etc. And the same with purchase orders deliveries. So that's how you link together the delivery of a purchase order, the invoice associated with that purchase order, and marking those as paid within Eve.